Hey all, it's Josh coming back to you guys again with another Warhammer the Old World battle report. So this is going to be my game number one for the Alberta Classic that happened. And if you guys want to check out my list and the breakdown of it, you guys can check out the video right here. So this is going to be game number one of three, and my opponent is Daniel, and he is bringing Beastmen, as you guys can see. Our scenario was open battle, and the thing with this tournament is there were also extra secondary objectives to complete for additional points. So in this first game, our secondary objective was we had to select 3 enemy characters to kill, and if they die, they were worth extra points. And if there aren't 3 characters to choose, then the characters that are there are worth even more points. You guys can see that there is flat terrain, and it was like that for all of the tables, which, to be honest, was not the best, just because it was easy to forget that the terrain was there, depending on what it was. I should also point out I am on the left, and Daniel is on the right, obviously with my Lizardmen and his Beastmen. This was my first time playing Beastmen ever, so I was excited to try to see what they could do. So as far as deployment goes, you can see I put my Saurus central, and they're there to just kind of absorb any big charge that comes through. And then the idea was to put the Stegodons surrounding him, the Saurus, sorry, so that they could help out by potentially countercharging. So what I want to do is move the Saurus block up and then keep the Stegodons a little bit further back so that we can get those charges in, get those impact hits, all that good stuff. So I deployed my skinks, as you guys can see on the far left, where that was a hill that the javelins were by, and then on the far right, and scouted them up. So where they are there, they're hiding behind a house, essentially. So the idea is that they can pop out and shoot what they need to. So the Beastmen win the roll to go first, and they opt to go first, so Daniel's just moving his stuff forward. And as far as spells, he rolled up. So he got Plague of Rust, Vile Tide, Wind Blast, and Travel Mystical Pathway. And I could choose my spells because of the lore familiar. So I took Fireball, Pillar of Fire, Curse of Arrow Attraction, and Monsoon. So the big models that are there with the big stone looking things are his Gorgons. So that's what he's moving up there. And then his basically one character is the chariot that's in the middle, and he's a wizard. So what he's doing here is he gets travel mystical pathway off on himself to get within range of the slant. And his plan is to do some magic missiles into the slan. Other than that, everything else just kind of moves up. Getting ready for some charges. Yes, and he has some harpies that he's moving to march block or what have you. So here he goes with casting. So the first thing he casts is Vile Tide, which he gets off. And at the end of it, my Slan takes 3 wounds from it. which was pretty disappointing. I was expecting, Slan to be able to dispel stuff. So then he casts Wind Blast and does enough damage to kill the Slan with that. So round one, I immediately lose my Slan, which was not the best. So it's on to my turn, and I go for a charge with the Carnosaur right off the bat, and I needed like a 3 on the Swift Stride dice and didn't get it. So he fails right away, which is really unfortunate because he definitely could have chewed through those boars and gone into the Gorgon, which is kind of an ideal target for him in the Carnosaur because the Carnosaur can potentially just one-shot the Gorgon. So that was really disappointing. Otherwise, yeah, everything kind of moved up and around. The skinks closest to us are getting ready to fire all their blowpipe shots at a chariot, and then same with the other set of skinks. And then on the far side, the skinks with javelins are shooting into his Jabberwock or Jabberslythe. So yeah, they go for it. The really nice thing about the javelins is that they can march and then still shoot, which is really cool. And because everything's poison, they managed to do 3 wounds onto the Jabberslythe, and another 2 onto the chariot that is just out of frame of the camera here. So other than that, though, the turn was pretty uneventful for the Lizardmen. And then obviously the Saurus moved up to be right in the front of everything so they could absorb the first charge that comes in. So there's a shooting going on.
If you like what you're watching and want to help support the channel, check out our shop at etsy.com/shop/Battlebond Miniatures, where we sell a variety of proxy models, terrain, and game accessories that can be used for an assortment of tabletop games. Use our discount code up on the screen for 10% off your next order, and don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and now back to the video.
And that is my round 1. So going into round 2, we're going to get obviously a bunch of charges declared from all the Beastmen units, because they're all so close. So another cool thing about the skinks with javelins is that the javelins let them stand and shoot from any distance. So if the opponent's model is closer than half of their movement, or half of their charge range, I should say, within their base movement distance, they still get to throw their javelins. So that's pretty nice. So you can see everything charges. So the Gorgon and the boars were charging into the Saurus, and what ends up happening is I take a terror test because of the Gorgon, and I fail it. So they have to fall back, and this entire game I actually forgot about the cold-blooded rule, so I wasn't taking my tests on 3 dice and dropping the highest. And because I had lost my general, I didn't have better leadership either. So that happens. My skinks are fleeing because they're too close to be able to shoot their blowpipes to stand and shoot. And then the skinks on the far side decide to stand and shoot into the Jabberslythe because it only has 2 wounds left, so I just have to get a couple 6s and it basically dies, which is actually what happened. So that was cool. So the skinks on the far side got multi-charged. Obviously, it was the Jabberslythe and the chariot. So they kill the Jabberslythe, and the chariot goes into them. And then the Saurus actually get caught by the boars because they didn't run that far, and they were actually pretty close to begin with. So unfortunately, what it means is because of that failed terror check and them running, they just get run down. So I lose the Saurus, the whole unit, which is unfortunate. And then the Gorgon gets to redirect into my Stegodon, which I don't like because it'll get to go first. And then I'm going to end up doing some panic tests for the Saurus unit getting run down. So yeah, and then the skinks get charged at the bottom there by the chariot. And obviously they were too close to be able to stand and shoot. And then my opponent goes through all of his movement stuff. And it was at this point where I remembered panic tests. So the Carnosaur fails and runs 11 inches. And then the other Stegodon fails and also runs 11 inches. So that was the panic test from the Saurus Warriors. So yeah, at this point things are looking pretty horrible for the Lizardmen. And my opponent didn't have to roll any dice to cause this state of play to happen. So that's probably the worst part. So just going through some combats here, the skinks obviously lose, and then his chariot overruns into the chameleon skinks. And that'll pretty much be the theme for this entire game, more or less. So my Stegodon gets monster slayed by the Gorgon, of course. And then my other skink unit just gets wiped out. So this is the top of round 2, and this is the game state. So yeah, don't have much left. So the Stegodon fails to rally, runs off the board, but the Carnosaur manages to pass. And then the skink unit that was there also failed to rally and ended up rolling enough to run through the harpies and also run off the board. So yeah, then you can see my chameleon skinks, they get beaten and run down by that chariot. So that was all on my turn. So now over to his. So this is round 3, top of 3. And my skinks run from panic. Or no, sorry, they run from the charge, the chariot charge, and end up running off the board, which is unfortunate. So yeah, he just basically surrounded my Carnosaur with all his stuff. Here he's trying to magic missile my Carnosaur, so he takes a wound from that, but he's pretty tanky, so it's not too bad. So it comes to my turn, and I get to charge in, which is nice. And so that's a combat that easily goes my way, thanks to how much damage I do. So I wipe them out, and I overrun. Literally the only thing left on my side is my Carnosaur. So round 4, not much else to do except for take some charges, because I'm already locked in combat. So Daniel just moves all this stuff around to get ready for round 5 in case I survive. And then there's nothing left to do except for to fight the combat. So because of how beefy my character is, though, he actually ends up winning because he was able to cause more than enough wounds, and he only took maybe like 2 in return, thanks to the 4 up, 5 up. This is where my luck in the game kind of turned, because I made a lot of 5 up wards. So small victories, I guess. And the unfortunate thing about this is I put my Carnosaur attacks into his Gorgon, and I got two wounds through, and then when I rolled up for my multi-wound, they both rolled 1s. So I actually could have just outright killed his Gorgon, but that was the dice for me for this game. So yeah, here you see he runs, but his chariot actually ends up only giving ground, which is unfortunate, because it means that I couldn't run anything down. So once again, I'm stuck in combat close to all his models, but it is my turn. So I'm just going to put everything into the chariot and kill it, and then we're going to overrun and hit his other chariot. And then we're going to go into round 5, where his beasts don't rally, so they keep running. And something that I learned is that they don't get to use the general's leadership, war beasts, so they just end up running for the rest of the game, the last 2 rounds. Yeah, so obviously I'm able to wipe out that chariot, no problems. And then I overrun to try and get out of some charge arcs and just get some distance between me and his models. So then it comes to my turn, and what I did there was I did the test to be able to march, and I'm just trying to save points at this point. So I just ran as far as I could. So yeah, obviously I passed the test, and then I kept going. So he brought his wizard as close as possible to try and kill my Carnosaur with the magic missile. So this is round 6. And he ends up going through both his magic missiles, and he leaves the Carnosaur on 2 wounds remaining, and there's nothing left to do for my turn. So that is it for the game. So seeing as my only model left was the Carnosaur, we tallied up the victory points, and it ended up being a crushing defeat. So it was 344 for me and 1893 for Daniel. And that includes with the extra points that he got for killing my character. So some thoughts regarding this game. I mean, for getting cold-blooded literally cost me the game. Other than that, my dice rolls were pretty bad, like failing the charge with the Carnosaur afterwards and not being able to dispel anything with my Slan, which caused him to die and kind of cascaded everything, was also a big deal. So yeah, there's that. And then yeah, I really think that charge with the Carnosaur, where I just needed a 3-up, could have swung the game back in my favor, because, like I said, I could have chewed through those boars and then gone into his Gorgon and probably chewed through that as well. And him with 1 less Gorgon is, you know, a lot less scary. And if I break through his lines, then I get to just turn around and come back and go after whatever I want. So, unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's a dice game, right? So, the positive thing about this is that our game ended super early, and we were going into lunch. So it meant that I got to go and hit up a local brewery that was right by the venue and get myself prepped for game number 2. So hope you guys enjoyed this recap, and thanks for watching, and we will have the games number 2 and 3 coming up as well.